other?
So what, Bernie? What do you think?
Yeah,
because you're listening intently.
I'm just listening, interested.
Oh.
It's fascinating.
Kind of what we're recalling?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course the teen years were spent on Belmont Avenue.
I don't think any of the rest of the family knows anything about your mother's family.
Oh.
I don't think our kids have the slightest idea of who your mother's sisters and brothers were. And that's going to evaporate unless you...
That's true. That was the Quigley family.
Yes.
Our mother's family was John and, gosh, was it Catherine? I have all this written down. Ellen.
Ellen and Ed.
Not John.
Ed and Ellen.
Yeah.
Edward Aloysius.
Edward Aloysius Quigley, and they did live on the Old West Side on Wilcox Street. Bernie and I went to find it a few years ago, and it was like a war zone, sort of bombed out looking. But apparently it was quite nice and middle class and comfortable in those days. And apparently our grandmother, Ellen, had a house full of people. I think it was Uncle Bill.
She had her brother living with her.
Her brother lived with her.
He worked for our grandfather, who owned he was a coal merchant.
Yeah, he had horses in the barn.
And his Bill, our grandmother's brother, drove a wagon, a coal.
Wasn't the coal yard on 5th Avenue in Chicago?
Don't know.
I think so. Where did we find that out?
I found it out from your mother, I think, and I tried to find it once.
And then there was her grandmother, who was born in Ireland in the county of Cork, and according to my mother used to say, on the banks of the River Lee, which is a kind of a long river that runs through Cork. She was my mother's, and there were other, I don't want to digress, but I'll go on with Annie Gert, who was a cousin who was orphaned at 6 years old or something, who went to live with my mother's family, and that was Annie Gert's, also her grandma. And they loved Grandma. They adored Grandma.
We didn't talk about her brothers and sisters, besides these other relatives.
No. Well, yeah, go on.
There was James was the oldest, and I think he was probably born in like 1890 or so. I don't know about the dates, but he was a lot older than our mother. There was James, Marie, Josephine, Lillian.
Who died at 18 of Spanish influenza.
Yeah.
At 21 of Spanish influenza.
Yeah,
I think it was 1918.
And I'm supposed to resemble Lillian greatly. The way I walk and everything is supposed to be like Lillian. And she was a favorite of my mother's. Okay, so we've got James, Marie, Josephine, who became a nun, Lillian. Then there was a lapse of time, and then my mother, Helen, who became, or Aunt Nellie, became a nun, and then the baby was Edward. And there were twin boys that died. So I think of birth. So there are all these kids, and then, extended family. The grandmother, the uncle, and then this cousin, Gert, who was a friend to our mother all through her life, even though it's kind of a strained relationship, but she was always around anyway. And then Nellie was close to my mother, I guess. Our mother loved her.
I think she looked most like Aunt Marie.
Yeah.
Annie Gert was must have been the family mutt. She was sort of 5 by 5. She was what they call black Irish, which is very dark olive skin.
Remember she had that kind of those reddish folds in her neck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She always had her hair dyed, so I don't know what her real hair looked like, but she always had it dyed black, and she wore very, very loud print dresses.
Lots of jewelry.
Silver, beautiful silver jewelry against that dark olive skin. And these little spike heels.
And she was on the go. Remember she had that little black dog?
Yeah.
And a little, it was, what was it, a Scottie?
I don't know.
I think so. But so where you'd see Gert, and she had the black hair, and then this black dog in the back seat who resembled her from the side. The dog would be with, well, I wish I could remember that dog's name. The dog was always with her.
And she lived with Pat and Jack in the same apartment building.
She lived,
Eventually,
yeah,
Belle Plaine.
She lived on the northwest side, always around us, on Belle Plaine, and then she lived
Belden.
on Belden. I lived there with my mother too. Jim, the oldest of my mother's family, was a priest. He was a Servite father.
And he became a prior, which is a kind of, I don't know what in the hierarchy where that fits, but apparently it's fairly high.
He had that Irish shock of white hair, sort of like Bill, and no, not a bit of baldness. He was a nice-looking man. And then, as you said, Joe. Aunt Joe was a nun, Sister of Mercy, and Aunt Nellie was
Marie
a nun.
was a nun at one time too.
Yeah,
in her youth, but she left the convent.
All Sisters
and married.
of Mercy.
She had 4 children.
And Mother's younger brother Ed moved to California at a young age and married a woman, and they lived in San Diego, kind of near La Jolla. I met him once. He's a nice man, kind of shy. And my mother dearly loved him, and it was a funny kind of meeting. You know, there was a lot unsaid, and we were just being polite.
Remember all of her dreams? She'd
be yelling in the middle of the
Edward! Ed, you know, she was dreaming about him.
Yeah.
For years and years and years, she dreamt about him.
So, I never really knew Grandma. I don't think you did either, but we heard a lot about Grandma, and that was a lot of my mother's, the transmission of her Irishness was through Grandma. A lot of sayings, endless sayings, she used to call me something that I thought was probably more apt than all of this sort of other stuff, which was a bold stump. You're a bold stump. And I think I was, at least to her mind.
And you were the boldest of the 3 of us.
I don't even know what that means, but it's... I'm not sure how much more time we have on this. What do you think, Bill?
Well, you've gone 24 minutes already.
Maybe that's long enough. How can we finish?
Have you covered most of the family?
Our father's side of the family we haven't covered. We don't know that much. We're just learning things recently. And of course, this is 1994. I'm trying to get this. It's almost like a record. I'll be 62 soon. In October next month. You'll be 64. Hat would have been 67. What's the date? In 4 days. And here we are in Rochester on, what's the name of the street?
Boxwood Lane.
Boxwood Lane. Bringing my first visit to Lois and Bill.
We've had a good, companionable time.
Wonderful week. Beautiful fall weather. We couldn't ask for a better day than today.
Yeah, wasn't it wonderful?
And Bill has been charming and generous and very patient.
I didn't hear that.
So anyway, it was, there were probably a lot of gaps in our account here, but...
Sure, we'll have to talk another time about what we know about our father's family. Also from Chicago, and our grandmother, by the way, came from Ireland directly to Chicago, as far as we know. So our history in Chicago goes back till maybe the middle of the last century.
So next time we'll go into Bridget and her sons and her one daughter.
Bridget Buckley, yeah.
Do you want to end it now?
I think so.
I think so. Our tea is getting cold.